They stole the wrong Apache woman. By sunrise, a legendary gunslinger was already at the fence. The trouble began the night the raiders slipped into the outskirts of the Apache camp, moving with the confidence of men who believed they could take whatever and whoever they wished without consequence. And though they managed to seize a young woman named Asha, they had no idea they were laying hands on someone whose disappearance would rattle the land before dawn. Asha did not scream, nor did she beg, even when they tied her wrists and pushed her onto a stolen horse, because she carried within her a strength her ancestors whispered into her bones. Since childhood, a strength made of fire, spirit, and lineage. The raiders celebrated their capture, thinking she was simply another bargaining piece they could trade or sell. But each of them felt a creeping discomfort they refused to voice, as if the darkness around them had begun listening. That fear had a name, though none of them said it aloud. Harrow, the gunslinger whose reputation stretched across counties, like a shadow nobody wanted to step into. Cole had once walked the same trail as killers and bounty hunters, but he had left that life behind after an oath he made to Asha's father years ago. A promise forged in a clash of honor Asha's father had spared Cole's life in an ambush long ago, and Cole had vowed that as long as he breathed, no harm would ever touch the chief's bloodline. So when Asha was taken, the news reached Cole before sunrise, carried by a boy who rode through the night, with lungs burning and eyes wide with fear. Cole didn't ask questions. He didn't need them. He simply holstered the iron he hadn't used in years, placed his hat over his eyes like a man returning to a familiar battlefield, and rode out before the horizon even began to glow. Meanwhile, Asha was brought to the raiders' temporary camp, tied to a fence post as they argued about what to do with her. Some wanted ransom, others wanted leverage, but Asha watched them with a gaze too calm for a prisoner, a look that unsettled even the hardest among them. She warned them in a quiet voice that they had made a mistake they could not undo. But the men only laughed, calling her stories superstition, trying to ignore the uneasy chill spreading through the camp. She did not mention Cole by name. She didn't have to. The bond between them had been formed over years of respect, quiet conversations, and shared danger, and she knew that if he ever discovered she was in danger, he would come with the fury of a man who had lost too much in life to lose anything more. As the raiders argued, one of them, a man called Riker, kept glancing at the horizon, feeling a pressure in his chest he hadn't felt since he deserted the army, a sense that a storm was approaching on horseback. He barked orders to his crew, trying to disguise his nervousness. But Asha could see the cracks forming in his bravado. She told him that fear had already chosen him, that the moment he laid hands on her, his fate was sealed. But again he silenced her with empty threats. As the hours passed, the tension only grew. Asha's ropes dug deeper into her skin, but she never flinched, not even when the raiders pretended they might execute her to force her tribe's cooperation. She simply lifted her chin and said that fear belonged to those who believed in power, without understanding consequence. When the first light of dawn crept across the plains, the camp grew still. Birds were silent. Wind stopped moving. Even the horses remained tense and restless. It was then that the faint thud of hooves cracked through the silence, slow and deliberate, like a heartbeat approaching from the horizon. Riker cursed under his breath, ordering his men to ready themselves. Though he did not say the gunslinger's name, Asha closed her eyes briefly, not in relief but in certainty, knowing that Harrow had arrived exactly as she had expected. At the very moment when darkness transforms into dawn, the raiders formed a loose circle, weapons drawn, all facing the shape emerging from the rising light. Cole dismounted his horse with the calm of someone who had nothing left to fear. His hands steady, his steps slow, his gaze locked on Asha rather than the men shouting around him. He walked until he reached the boundary of the fence where she stood bound, and only then did he glance at the raiders, his eyes cold enough to make several of them shift uncomfortably. Cole did not give speeches. He did not announce threats. He simply looked at Asha, saw the rope marks on her skin, and something deep within him hardened in a silent, dangerous way. Riker tried to negotiate, offering Cole gold, land, even freedom for Asha, but Cole ignored him completely. One of the raiders panicked and fired a shot into the dirt near Cole's boots. But Cole didn't move, didn't blink, didn't so much as turn his head. That stillness terrified them more than any gunshot. Asha felt the shift in the air, a stillness before inevitable chaos. But she sensed the control in Cole's stance, the promise that she would walk away from this, and the man who had taken her would not. When Cole finally raised his weapon, he did so with precision forged from a past he had buried but never forgotten. And though he did not say a single word, the message was carved into every line of his posture. They stole the wrong Apache woman, and they were about to learn what that mistake would cost them. Asha's heartbeat remained steady as she waited, knowing that the moment the sun fully rose, the land itself would witness what happened when a legendary gunslinger kept his promise. The moment the sun crowned the horizon, everything in the Raiders' camp tightened like a drawn bowstring, as Harrow stood at the fence line with the quiet certainty of a man who had already measured the distance, weighed the danger, and accepted whatever end might come as long as Asha walked free. Riker watched him with a mixture of fury and dread, barking orders to his men, trying to convince himself that numbers could conquer reputation. But Cole's presence carved through every illusion of safety the Raiders clung to. Asha, still bound to the wooden post, felt the tension humming beneath the surface like the slow coil of a rattlesnake, preparing to strike. Cole did not rush, did not posture, did not waste breath on ultimatums. Instead, he raised his gun with the same calm he'd once used to tame wild horses, and the first Raider to step forward found himself disarmed. Before he understood how fast the gunslinger could move, the shot echoed across the plains, sending every man scrambling for cover. But Cole remained planted where he stood, his focus locked on the smallest openings, the slightest shifts in movement. Riker shouted at his men to flank him, trying to regain control, yet their fear scattered them in every direction. Asha knew that Cole could not fight forever, not against this many armed men. But she also knew something else. He had not come alone. By the time the Raiders realized, they were not only facing Harrow but also the silent shadows of Apache warriors cresting the ridge behind him. It was too late. The warriors moved with precision, bows drawn, spears raised, their presence sending a silent warning through the camp. They did not attack immediately. They were waiting, giving the Raiders one final chance to surrender. But Riker, blinded by pride, refused to accept defeat. He grabbed Asha by the arm, dragging her closer to him, shouting that he would end her life if anyone moved another step. Cole's jaw tightened, but he did not lower his weapon, his eyes burning with a fury that had been dormant for years. Asha did not struggle, did not cry out. She simply stared at Riker, with the same quiet defiance she carried the night she was taken. She told him he could threaten her body, but he would never touch her spirit. And that simple truth finally cracked Riker's composure. He pulled his revolver toward her head, hands shaking, shouting curses at the warriors who were now closing in from every direction. Cole waited, calculating, studying the angle of the gun, the tremble in Riker's fingers, the slight shift in Asha's posture that told him she was ready. In a single motion, timed with precision that only a man forged by countless battles could manage, Asha drove her heel into Riker's shin, throwing his aim off for the briefest heartbeat. Cole seized the instant. One shot rang out, slicing the tension clean in half, and Riker crumpled to the ground, his weapon skidding across the dirt. The remaining Raiders froze, their resolve breaking like glass underfoot. They dropped their guns and raised their hands as the Apache warriors surrounded them, securing the camp with disciplined speed. Cole rushed to Asha, cutting the ropes binding her wrists with a gentleness completely opposite the violence moments before. Asha steadied herself on his arm, not because she was weak, but because the adrenaline of survival demanded a moment's grounding. She thanked him softly, her eyes reflecting something deeper than gratitude, something that spoke of trust built over years. Cole nodded, unable to find words that matched the weight of relief he felt seeing her safe. When the warriors approached, led by Asha's uncle, they expressed their respect to Cole with quiet gestures rather than speeches, understanding that honor did not need grand declarations. The captives were gathered, their fate left in the tribe's hands, and the camp was dismantled with efficient order. Asha walked alongside Cole as they left the scene behind, the air heavy with the remnants of conflict, but clearer than it had been when dawn first broke. She told him the Raiders had believed she was simply a prize, a bargaining chip, but she never once doubted he would come. Cole admitted that when he heard she was taken, something inside him rose from the past he had tried to bury, something he thought he had lost forever, the willingness to fight for someone he cared about. Asha stopped him, placing a hand on his arm, and told him that strength does not fade simply because peace is chosen. It waits, ready when needed. They reached the Apache camp by midday, where families gathered to welcome Asha home, their relief palpable. Cole stood at the edge, feeling like an outsider despite the respect they offered him. But Asha motioned him forward, refusing to let him slip away like a ghost returning to solitude. She told the tribe how he had faced danger without hesitation, how he had honored the promise made to her father long ago, and the people listened with solemn gratitude. That evening, as the tribe held a quiet gathering to celebrate Asha's return, Cole prepared to slip away, believing his place was back on the open road. But Asha intercepted him before he reached his horse. She told him his debt was paid long ago, that no oath bound him now, and that if he left, it should be because he chose to, not because he believed he didn't belong. Cole hesitated for the first time since he rode into danger. He looked at her, truly. Looked and realized that the bond between them had grown into something neither of them had dared name. Asha extended her hand, offering him not obligation, but a place in a world that finally felt like home. Cole took her hand, the weight of wandering years lifting from his shoulders. They walked back toward the firelight together, the night settling around them not as a threat, but as a beginning. The land bearing silent witness to the truth the raiders never understood. They had stolen the wrong Apache woman, and in doing so they had reunited two souls bound by fate, honor, and something deeper that neither needed to speak aloud for it to be real.